Time now to talk to some of our freshman lawmakers in Washington, D.C. And joining me right now is Ross Spano, as a congressman from District 15 in the Lakeland area. Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Al. Thanks for having me.
Well, are you completely disanfranchised yet with the political process now that you're in D.C.?
No, although it might be hard to imagine that I'm not. Pretty much what I expected going in. I think generally people want the same thing up there. We just disagree about how to get to where we want to go. But people, I think, do love America, and they want to do what's best, at least in their own opinions, as to how we get there and what's best for America. But there have been some things that have been eye-opening. I've been particularly surprised at how much political theater takes place in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in many cases, it's less about policy than you might want, and more about, maybe how to place a position or position a candidate, in the opposing party, in 2020, and maybe it's pacifying your respective bases on certain issues.
So we had our cameras, or you had your cameras, when you were out with the Flying Tigers in Lakeland, and you sang the national anthem. So we're going to show you. Now, this was edited only because we didn't want to show you all 4.5 minutes. He sings good, but we don't have that much time on TV. So let's roll the Star Spangled Banner, sung by Congressman Ross Spano. Of course, it's edited to shorten it down. Listen up.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, and the home of the Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Ross Spano.
Holy smokes, you ought to be on The Voice.
Man, I enjoyed doing that.
That high note. Of course, I knew that you sang professionally, so I mean that was really high.
Yeah, well, thank you. I enjoyed doing it.
Okay, now that we've got that out of the way, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla that's in the audience right now, we might say. What's going on with the FCC investigation into possible some infractions that may have occurred in terms of the way the money was handled when you got into office?
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for asking. There's a lot of misinformation out there about it. We self-reported to the FEC immediately, and we're actively engaged in making sure that that's taken care of.
Now, when you say self-reported, I mean you noticed that there was something that was wrong.
Absolutely.
So what's the allegation that you, in quotes, did wrong?
Yeah, the issue was that we believed that we were okay taking a personal loan, but we weren't. It was advised by consultants that we could do that, and unfortunately we weren't. But when we found out, we immediately notified the FEC, took it upon ourselves to do that, because we felt like it was important to be transparent. I promised the people I would be transparent, and so we're now in the process of making sure that we make that right.
And of course your enemies are trying to use it against you.
Yeah, of course. Look, this is the first time I've run a congressional campaign. The learning curve is really steep.
Yeah.
You make mistakes and you move on, but you do what's right, and you come forward if you have a potential issue.
Since we have such a divided government right now, you come in here with concerns that Florida needs, and I'll use the number one, transportation. We got a mess here. So how do you get in there when it looks like Republicans and Democrats are never going to cooperate on anything?
Well, I think number one, you have to come in with the right attitude. I think you have to have people willing to negotiate. You have to have people willing to do what's right for the American people. I think we do. I think this issue, among all that are out there, is probably the one that we have probably the most appetite for from a bipartisan standpoint to get something done. The issue is going to be, how do we fund it? What's the long-term mechanism to fund transportation? And that'll be kind of where the rubber meets the road.
Okay, infrastructure, it doesn't get the headlines. It's, in quotes, not sexy because there's so many other crazy things going on in D.C. But again, who is there to turn back the direction to get it back that we are working for the American people, Republicans and Democrats together, and that compromise isn't such a dirty word that if it comes out of your mouth, the conservatives or the ultra-liberals on the other side are condemning you for being a moderate?
Yeah, I think it's probably not quite as bad as some people might think. I think if you're actually in Washington, D.C., in the process, you see that there are people wanting to work together, willing to work together. Unfortunately, it's the people that cry the loudest or are the most divisive that get most of the coverage. So that creates a perception that there's more division. However, I will say, I hope that Democratic leadership in the House will take the position that we should and can get something done, at least with regard to transportation and infrastructure, notwithstanding the positive implication that might have for the president. My concern is that they don't want to give President a win on any front right? Because then that helps them in the 2020 election.
But then the Republicans did the same thing to President Obama, too.
Absolutely.
Well, when is it going to end? I think that's the whole deal.
Both party, well, I think we need good people up there. I'm willing to do that. I know that there are others willing to do that, and the people that are willing to do that just need to be more vocal about it. And I think we're going to get to see. I'm optimistic.
Okay.
I'm optimistic. I think the crew of freshmen that we have in there are willing to do that.
So transportation and infrastructure, they're kind of all rolled together. But here we go again. So much attention has been focused on immigration and the wall or not the wall and all that kind of stuff. And and then everybody says in their sound bites, well, the American people want this, American people want that. And I know there are polls that suggest what they want, but in reality, the American people they just want stuff to get done.
Yeah, no question about it. No question about it. They just want us to do our jobs. The practical fact of the matter is we do have a crisis on the southern border. It is a problem. We have actually 200,000 people that have been intercepted since the first of the year. That's twice as many as last year at this time. And it's a result of really unintended consequences of well-intended law, right? Our asylum law initially was we wanted to give people that truly needed asylum an opportunity to migrate to our country.
Right.
Great notion. We want to do that. Unfortunately, the way it works as a practical matter is all you have to do is step across the sign and the line of our border and say, I want asylum. You say exactly what you're told to say. We can't retain you. We have to release you to our country. And then 98% of the people never return for a court hearing. You see the problem that creates and the motivation that creates for many, many people to come to our nation who really aren't seeking asylum.
But again, this seems to happen every 2 years. And we talk about the pendulum, okay? The pendulum has swung very far to the right. Now the fear is, from a Republican standpoint, that it's going to go way to the left. And the Democrats are trying to take advantage of that because they say the American people have an appetite for something that's different. And we can start out with their top issue is health care.
Yeah. Well, I think the Republicans have to have an answer. They can't simply be obstinate and say, so my opinion is that it includes more free market types of policies and principles. One thing we need to do, I don't know if you're aware of this, but our health care insurance system is not required to follow the antitrust laws. And so, my opinion, if you look at the numbers, they actually work with each other, right?
Yeah.
To really to indicate what the rates are going to be for people, and it's not a truly competitive market.
Okay,
I think we need to get rid of that.
Yeah.
I think other things we need to do are things like direct primary care, which I think is going to give the ability for people to get direct primary care. Things like the certificate of need process here in Florida, which discourages hospitals from opening.
Oh, sure.
So different things like that, insurance across state lines, all these things from a free market principle. I think the decisions with regard to healthcare need to remain with the doctor and the patient. My fear is that Republicans are not going to offer a credible alternative, okay? Instead,
well, who sits down and writes out the paperwork that says, let's do ABC? Now, I know that Rick Scott, our new United States Senator, he wants to pass legislation that will protect pre-existing conditions. And, of course, these are all hot-button points that will be used against your party and against you in 2020.
That you need to know, Al, and I think the people out there need to know, is that Republicans are not opposed to protecting from pre-existing condition. We're not.
Okay.
We actually voted in the last Congress to protect pre-existing condition.
Well, why aren't they? Are they protected or not? Yes or no? Are they protected or not?
Yeah, absolutely. That's what the current state of the law is my understanding, and that's what Republicans support. We want to do that. We voted for that in the last Congress. Unfortunately, that word is not getting out, and that issue was used against us. Right. I think people should be protected that have pre-existing conditions. Right? I happen to think if you have a young person that lives in your home, right, still, and they're 25 or 26, you ought to be able to keep them on your policy. Right. There are common sense things that we can agree on. The problem is, are we willing to come together, provide that common solution? And I'll just address what you said a moment ago, Al. We've got to be willing as Republicans to offer an alternative.
Something that works.
Absolutely. An alternative. Because what's going to happen is we're going to definitely end up in a single-payer system if we don't offer an alternative, right? And we're not going to have Medicare for all. We're going to have bad health care for all is what we're going to have.
Yeah. Let us know when you're going to be singing the national anthem again. We'll want to get our cameras out there. And Congressman, thank you for stopping by, and we'll want to get back to you really soon again as we continue to follow what's going on in Washington. And thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be with you, and it's an honor to serve 15. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you.